Are you curious about what it takes to achieve success and fulfillment in your professional life, your personal life, and in your relationships? Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Natalie Burt to the show. Natalie is not only a mother of three, an author, and a designer, she's also an entrepreneur. And together with her husband, Coach Michael Burt, she runs a transformational coaching business in Nashville, Tennessee, where together they impact millions of lives. In her book, Living with the Monster, Natalie shares valuable insights on how to thrive in a relationship with a driven partner. She and Coach Burt also host a couples retreat designed to help partners create an impactful plan for their relationship and what they want to accomplish together. I'm so excited to dive into her story today. So, Natalie, thank you so much for coming on to the show and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I had Coach Bird on the show a few months ago, and you know, like I had such a wonderful time with Coach Bird. He is so ambitious and driven and has the most positive of attitudes. So it also got me curious, who is his wife? Who is this amazing woman that has this man doing some incredible things? And I discovered that you are up to some amazing things yourself. So I guess I would love to start by just you introducing who you are and what got you into this journey with Coach Burt and into coaching and what you're doing now.
Um, so we met when I was 30, which I'm from a super small town in West Tennessee. I just never really had anybody talk to me about dreams and goals and what I wanted to do. And um, so I found myself, like most people, just in a job. I was really good in sales and loved working with people and taking care of people. Um, but never really dug deep beyond that. So with that job in sales, they had sent me to a workshop that he was doing on a book that he wrote called This Ain't No Practice Life. And I started reading this book and it totally rocked my world. Nobody had ever asked me what I was passionate about, what I was talented at, what my gifts were, what I loved doing. And so that really at 30 years old started my journey of personal development. And I think about all the time, what would my life have been like if I would have started way earlier? So that's why we have involvement with children and stuff, is because I do want people to think about that way earlier than 30 years old. But that's how it started, and that's how we met. So from that workshop, we started dating. And yes, he says that I got a husband for $50.
It's like a bargain.
Yeah, yes, it's a really good deal. I got a really
Oh,
good
yeah.
deal. Um, so
I don't
that's
know. Somehow I think maybe, he got the deal.
right. We both got a good deal. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what started.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And into that, you went into having a relationship together.
That's right. So things moved pretty quick. I was just excited about life, probably for the first time, really thought, okay, I know I have something deep inside of me. I know I have potential there. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to access it once I find it. So it was just perfect, I met him at the perfect time. Um, so at that time, he had a coaching program for entrepreneurs called Monster Producer. And we joked at home all the time that I was going to write a book called Living with a Monster, about how what it's like living with a driven person. And I'm like, you're crazy. No, nobody knows what it's like living with you. And
Mm.
it was really just a joke. Because I did not see author in my future. That's not something that I wanted, but it just, God has his way of, doing what he wants. But, so fast forward a couple years into that, and he was speaking at 10X Growth Con. And the day he spoke, we'd been there for 6 days, other phenomenal speakers. It was a great experience. My phone starts blowing up, Facebook notifications, and he congratulated me on Facebook for writing my first book, Living with a Monster. And I was furious because I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about writing a book or, but, he told me, I'm like, did you really do this? And he's like, yes, you have a message that the world needs to hear, and your desire to be comfortable has got to be less than your desire to help people. And
Mm.
so I thought, okay, like I knew that I had that inside of me of helping people, right? That's what the part of my job I was so good at was loving on people and helping people. And so I just went for it and I did it. And it was not as hard as I thought it would be. But yeah, so that's how the book came about.
Wow. So really, you're almost voluntold
I
to
was
write.
voluntold. Yes. Yes,
That's coach for you.
that's right. But, I allow him to do that to me even to this day. I mean, he is a true coach. And what that means is they see something in you and they pull it out of you and they affirm it in you until you start believing it for yourself. And so he has done that for me multiple times throughout. That was 13 years ago. He's done that several times to me when I, did it kicking and screaming, but I always was grateful on the back end. I was always thankful. I grew from it. I was proud of myself, all the things you want. And that's why, the couples retreats are so important to me. It's because I think this is an issue that people are not talking about. There's a driven spouse out there or a driven partner, and your partner doesn't understand why you work this way, why you grind so hard, why it's all you think about. I mean, he still takes a notebook to dinner, a suitcase of books on vacation. Like, I do not think that way. And so there was a point in the beginning where I'm like, I'm gonna have to accept this versus try to understand it, because I do not think this way. And so, we really want to help couples get aligned in this way, because I feel like we're all called to do something. We all have some gifts and talents that we were given that we should be utilizing. And so when you do that, which is he's turned me into a monster now, now that I'm operating in my gifts and talents, I have passion, I have drive, I have things I'm trying to do. And it's not just me sitting there thinking, judging him. Why is he going so hard? Why is he doing that? Like, we're both doing that because we're pursuing our greatness together.
Right. And talk to me about that. That's beautiful. It's about getting on the same page with your husband so that you have a pursuit in the same direction. And I would agree. A lot of couples have a hard time when you have someone who's driven and the other person isn't. And sometimes you've got two driven people in a relationship,
That's right. Mhm.
but they're driving in opposite directions, right?
Yes.
How were you able, like, talk to me about how that shift happened in terms of, okay, let's get in alignment
Yeah.
with, with my husband so that we're actually not sort of competing, or, I'm not feeling like work has taken over his life, or, you're not like, you want to be beside him, right? Not behind him. And how did you cultivate that space for yourself? What shifted for you?
I think the first moment when I decided to accept versus understand, um, I went to see him coach. I was a stay-at-home mom. We had a new baby. So I think, like most people, you have this idea of what marriage is going to look like, and it's nothing like that.
Right.
It's not bad. It's just nothing like what you think it's going to be like. It never is. And so I'm thinking I'm going to cook every night. He's going to be home. We're going to have dinner at 5 as a family. And that never happened. And still to this day, it's rare that he's home at 5. But like that was just my idea of what it looked like. And it's so when I saw it wasn't going the way I thought it would, I said, okay, what can I do to get involved? So I went and saw him coach. And there was a room full of 50 people, excited, on fire. He coaches them. All these people are coming up to me saying, he is literally changing my life. My business has grown. This is changing. I've done this. I'm doing this. And I'm like, I will not be responsible of standing in the way of that. So how do I help? Like, how can I help? And so that's really when we started down a journey of like, how can I contribute to this business? And we already, had the conversation of my gifts and my talents. So we knew what they were. And it's like, okay, how do we implement that into the business? So my gift is hospitality. I love to entertain and serve and cook, and I had done that for years. It was just a natural thing to me, which is why I didn't really think a big deal of it. It was just a natural gift that I have. And so that's when I said, okay, this is my gift. How can we use it in the business? And it really did change the entire customer experience when we brought both of our gifts and talents. And that's how we serve people. He coaches and I do all of the hospitality and love on people that way. So that's really the biggest shift for me, was seeing what he did every day and saying, okay, like there's got to be a way for me to get involved in this and get on board. So we're moving in the same direction.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love the fact that you had the mindset of like, let me immerse myself in his world. Like, what is this thing all about?
Yes.
Why is he taking so much time and attention to, creating something, creating this, following his passion and his dream? And I think that that's one thing I think is great with couples is like, try to live in the other person's world and try to see what they see, right?
Yes.
That we can cultivate more understanding and compassion and even just love for that person's drive, right? Like sometimes they say like the things that you loved about a person when you first got into a relationship are sort of the things that you end up resenting about them, at the end of those relationships. So I find like for entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurs are super unique because it's like if you have a regular job, you have your Monday to Friday, you've got your 9 to 5, whatever, there's boundaries and rules and like you're kind of following within that system. But when you're an entrepreneur, there's really no rules or boundaries or, that like it is such like it's the wild, wild west. Right? Like if you don't create healthy boundaries for yourself, like you will burn out if you don't create rules or like or understandings around your relationships. Things will go sideways. So I'm curious, like, how have you been able to navigate this whole world of entrepreneurship with Coach and really create some healthy boundaries around like you yourself as an individual, your relationship with him, your family, like how have you been able to create some healthy boundaries so that you can continue to thrive?
Well, we'll talk about me personally first, and then, I'll share relationally and with the family. For me, I am absolutely adamant about self-care. I go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week. I prefer 5, but it's just my outlet. It's how I take care of myself. I feel good after, I feel confident after doing something really hard. Um, so if it's, nails or a massage, whatever it is for you, I would just say like be adamant about doing that because you have to take care of yourself, right? So that you can continue to pour out. For he and I, it's one thing that we try to do, and we started this a couple of years ago, is we try to spend one weekend a month together alone without the kids or work. And sometimes that spills over into each other. Like we may go do a couples retreat with no kids, and we still have quite a bit of time around built into the retreat where we can spend some quality time together. So it may not just, it's not perfect, you know, I mean, we try, it's on the calendar, we try. Um, and date nights sprinkled here and there, but that weekend away is like, because we need more than just a 3-hour dinner. Like we need some, like a day, a couple days, 3 days to like totally reconnect, and then we can go again. So just the date night is not really enough for us. I just think that we grind so hard and we go so fast, it's just not enough. So we try to do a weekend. And then with the kids, that is just, it's absolutely a necessity to me. I mean, I'm with them more, you know, for obvious reasons. I have set some really strong boundaries about what I will and will not do right now during this season, because we do have, you know, we have 3 years old and 20 months. And so they can't have both parents gone all the time. And so right now I've just had to say, okay, I'm interested in that, but I just can't do that right now. But as far as time with them, you know, in the mornings, he makes sure he's home in the mornings to see them in the morning. And then at some point during the night, it just looks different every day. And then most of the weekends, we're spending together as a family.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think like a really important thing, like I'm also a parent, and it's about like realizing that sometimes we tend to compare ourselves to like how we think perfect parenting is, or how we think perfect parenting should be, right? And it's like we're always kind of holding ourselves to this higher standard, and parenting can look different things to different people, right? Like everybody does parenting differently, and the time they spend with their kids is different. But I think in the end, you know, like if you know you're a good parent, then we also as parents need to know how to let ourselves off the hook a little bit, right?
Great.
And lead with our intentions.
Yes, for sure.
But those are some great tips in terms of having those boundaries for yourself and for, you know, your relationship and for your family. Talk to me about like boundaries for work. Like I'll share, like this is my second week of having left my career and just doing solopreneurship full time. And
Congratulations.
thank you so much. And I personally struggled with boundaries, like, you know, and like overworking, never feeling like it's enough. And I think like you could probably relate in the life you're living, in entrepreneurship with Coach Burt, that like when you're driven, you almost feel like you were never ever doing enough. Like there's always more. And how do you maintain boundaries of like, okay, it's enough for today. I've done enough. Walking away, we'll come back at it tomorrow. Have you had any struggles in that regard?
Um, yes, and I think of a couple of months ago, I just felt like super overwhelmed. Like I can't get to it all. I can't do it all. Like it's like you're saying, it's never enough. There's always something left at the end of the day. So I started a couple of months ago, like actually, I mean, I have my Google Calendar. And I think part of the reason I was overwhelmed is I could see my husband's calendar as well, like on mine.
Oh, yeah.
Which I have to, like, it is a necessity that I see where he is, because then I'm not like, why aren't you answering me if he's coaching somebody? Like, it helps for multiple reasons for me to see where he is when I'm scheduling something, planning a family trip, like whatever. But I also, that was overwhelming me, because that is not all that I am responsible for during the day. So I got my own book and I'm writing out this week, this day, like what do I need to accomplish this day? And what do I need to accomplish tomorrow? And, you know, and so that really is calmed me down on the inside to know that, okay, everything that I needed to do today is done. And tomorrow we'll start with tomorrow's list. But, I don't think when you're an entrepreneur, you're ever going to feel like it's all done today. Like there's always going to be something else you could have done. You could have worked a little longer. But that's like you said, that's creates burnout. So
Oh,
I just
yes.
don't want to get there. But I do want to say that we both feel strongly that there is no such thing as balance. I think that is a myth. Now, maybe for people who just have a job, that is a thing that can happen. But I don't feel like when you're growing and building something, and I talk about this in my book, um, you have to look at it like, what is the amount of energy that's needed for this one thing right now? It's like a newborn baby. If you have a new business, a newborn baby requires everything of you. And once they get a little bit older, you can kind of step away some. But in the beginning, when you're growing and building something, it literally takes everything. And so I think balance is something that's just really unrealistic to me when you're trying to grow and build a business.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I love the analogy of thinking of it like a baby, like it's needy, it has its needs, it
That's right.
needs its support, So I mean, I agree. I agree 100%. It is a myth. And I think it can easily make us feel bad because we never feel like we're always feeling out of balance. And
Yeah.
one thing that I once heard Ed Milet say, and he was saying like, actually, what's even more important than balance is presence. Like
Mhm.
when you're at work, are you thinking about your family or are you present and are you thinking about work?
Yeah.
When you're at home, are you with your family thinking about work or are you intentional and present with your family? Because you could be with your family like physically, but like in your
Yeah.
headspace, you're
Yeah.
totally somewhere else. And that's not really being with your family. And so it's like when you're at work, give it your 100% at work. When you're at home, give your family 100% of your attention. And
Yes.
that actually allows us to feel like, okay, like it gives ourselves permission to just let ourselves off the hook for balance. Cause you're right. If you're building something, if you're creating something, that balance is not going to exist for a long time.
Um,
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about like it sounds like you've grown in terms of, once you went into that marriage and the expectations that you had and maybe some, disappointments because, when reality doesn't meet our expectations, we start to look at things in a different way. And but then you grew, you discovered things about yourself and about your relationship and you've learned from it. And now you're at the point where you're actually teaching it to others.
yes. Yeah.
Talk to me about, and that this is where I saw a lot of your content on Instagram really related to the couples retreats and helping entrepreneurs and driven entrepreneurs thrive in their relationships. And it's not talked about a lot. So I love that you've so much of your page is really dedicated to the retreat. I'd love for you to just explain like what is the retreat all about? Who's it for? And what can people expect if they want to go on this retreat?
So we've really taken, we've been married for 8 years. We've really taken all of the structures and things that we've had to work through to get to this point. We've really put them into a workbook. And so what the course of the weekend looks like, it's Thursday to Sunday. So you come in Thursday night, we do some sort of dinner. It's either at our house or sometimes we do a bonfire at the beach. It's really, really nice. And then we rent houses around our house. So you have like your own suite with your own bathroom and all that in a house of other couples that are just like you. And so then we golf cart over on Friday and Saturday from 10 to 2. We do sessions then and we do lunch at our house. But it's really designed for you to, sleep in, take a walk on the beach, go get a coffee together, like all the things that entrepreneurs never have time for. Um, and then we're done by 2. So it's beautiful there, beautiful, sunny, beachy town. You can go sit at the beach, you can go shopping, you can have a date night. Like it's very intentional the way it's set up. A lot of the couples will go eat together and I tell them on the first night, I'm like, you're going to learn just as much from each other as you will from us. And by the end, they're like so close and they've related and talked to each other. They've done business together. Like it's just a really, really beautiful time. But as far as the actual work and the coaching, it's very light. It's not therapy. It's just okay, how do you think about money? Like we talk about the psychology of money. We talk about gifts and talents and how we have figured out a way to use them within our business. We talk about goals, like what is your ideal reality versus your current reality, and what and who needs to help you get there to the next step? Like, what are you trying to create? And we find a lot of times that couples really never talk about this with each other. They don't talk about where they're trying to go. It's like husband has an idea of where he's going and the wife has an idea of where they're going. And sometimes they're not the same. They don't really talk about it. And so we really just allow a good amount of time to get really clear on where you're going. Like, what are you trying to do? So we get really clear on that. And then the rest of the time we're building on top of that. You know, we talk about love languages, and then we talk about money and how that affects, like how I think about money, how he thinks about money, and how that affects the decisions that we make and how we run our business. And so it's all related to business and relationship. It's not too heavy one way or the other. And it's not therapy. It's actually a lot of fun. So
Wow, that's amazing. So like when people come to these retreats, is it both willing partners coming, or is it usually like one coming and the other one getting dragged along?
I think there's typically one person that's a little reluctant, but they seem to love it the most. You know, those who came in and were just like, whatever, I'll go, you know. Those are the ones that get the most out of it, you know, because their driven partner is actually communicating with them. You know, I mean, I think it's just when you're an entrepreneur and you're driven and you're always thinking and building and creating, like you really don't ever stop to communicate to those around you, like what you're doing. And so us creating that space for people to just share, like, this is what I'm trying to do, is just really big for couples.
Oh, absolutely. And would you say that like it's the driven partner that wants to do the couples retreats more, or is it the other?
Sometimes sometimes it's the other way around.
Oh,
Sometimes it's
okay.
one that's not driven, that's like, we're going to this, you know?
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. And like, I'm just curious, like, what are some of the common theme issues that couples tend to come in with? Are there some that sort of like top three things that most couples struggle in relationships with, or is it different every time?
I I would say it's different. There's a lot of the same things, and sometimes we have a group like this last one we did a couple weeks ago. You know, one guy was like, I am constantly, you know, dealing with employees all day long, and I come home and I treat my wife like an employee. And I'm
Oh,
like, okay, that's really good that he knew that, you know, and just the dynamic of their relationship and how it had shifted since he was now dealing with all these employees. And so it can be something like that, or just, you know, I don't have any idea what his drive is about and, you know, what he's trying to accomplish, because we don't ever talk about that. So it can be something that simple. But a lot of times just allowing the space for the communication and us giving them the structure. Okay, I want you to go talk about your love languages and how you can use them in your relationship better, but also what are your tendencies when you're not getting what you need from your spouse? Like, how do you behave? How do you act? How do you treat them? Like, do you lash out? Do you do this? Do you do, you know? So actually just guiding them through actually, you know, making them communicate.
powerful, so powerful. And it's true, like, in a lot of relationships, there are so many things where the issue is really, it boils down to communication and not being able to communicate your needs, or that other person sort of making a story or an assumption for why we assign meaning that's sometimes or a lot of the time disempowering, where the truth is actually that's not at all what's going on in that person's head. So it's to be intentional and having like that dedicated time to focus on something specific, like love language, and I actually like that piece around self-awareness. Like, okay, but like when you don't get that, what are you doing to the other partner or to yourself? like to have that awareness. I think sometimes, we don't really think about how we're also contributing to some of the issues that are arising
For
in
sure.
our situation. So, what would you say like are some really cool shifts that you've seen at these retreats, like of people making in terms of like maybe coming in, totally armed and then leaving really disarmed and having some breakthroughs and connection with one another? Can you share like a story or
Well, so we have one that they were a little older and she kind of went in, she was the monster.
okay. Wait,
Husband.
let's define monster. Just
Okay.
for
Okay,
I
yeah,
know what it means,
let's do
but
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so we've defined a monster as a legendary creature that can use multiple skills to dominate a market. So you're just totally focused on work. It's more of a mission and an assignment than it is a job. And so there's a lot of passion there. There's a lot of drive there. You think about this a lot. You could do it, for hours and time loses meaning to you. So that's kind of the way we've defined a monster because those are the characteristics of my husband.
I love that.
But we had a couple come in and she was the driven person. Her husband was a thinker, engineer. And she said that their biggest breakthrough, even to today, because I was just talking with her last night about this, that the things that bothered her the most, because we do a session on gifts and talents, how you find them, how you can use them. Um,
Mhm.
so she found through that session that the things that annoyed her the most about her husband or the biggest frustrations that she had were actually gifts that he had. And how that has connected them into her saying, okay, this is a gift that you have instead of this is frustrating me, this is making me angry, like let me lean into this gift that you have and how can it help us. And so that was their biggest breakthrough, which I thought was super cool. I've never had anybody describe it that way. um we've had people who have been through years of counseling together. And one lady that she said, we've been to counseling for 5 years. And this is the first time I feel like he really understands me. Also, another woman was the monster. So we've had that. We've had a couple that really, like I said, we're not therapists, but they showed up thinking if this doesn't work, like we're separating. And I was like, no pressure on me.
None.
Um, but it really just took, I knew both of their businesses well, and it really just took like me listening to them for a minute and me saying, no, like he has some really good ideas and he really wants to help you. Like, let your husband help you.
Okay.
And it was her business. She had started it. He quit his job to come help her, but she would not let him help her. And so it really just took someone else coming in because they were fighting about this constantly. And I just, third person sitting in saying, no, like he loves you. He wants to just help you. And they ended up happy leaving. Like this was amazing. They just needed that, you know, safe place to have that conversation. Just, guided conversation. So
And yeah, and sometimes when you have that, that's what really creates the shift. And sometimes just hearing someone, like sometimes we value someone else's perspective
yeah.
uh, over, say, this perspective of our significant other, if
Yes.
if the topic is very charged. But
Yes.
but yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, how long have you been doing these retreats?
Um, 6 years, I think.
Wow, that's amazing.
We just kind of did a couple a year. It wasn't really anything I took serious. And then I just felt like the beginning of last year, it was like, okay, this number one is not going to grow unless I grow it.
Right.
And um, But I think we get in our own heads sometimes, like it's not the right time. I have babies. Like, what does that look like? I need to lose some weight. It's just the wrong, all the things that you tell yourself not to get started. And so uh I put all that to the side last January, and I hired a coach and said, okay, I'm going after this. And so I'm really trying to grow it because I really feel like it is a need. I feel like our families and our marriages are under attack. And, if we can start with the marriage and that's my way of contributing to helping for that problem, then, I'm here for it. So
Like relationships are under attack with the pressure of this world and the pressure of entrepreneurship and businesses. Like, at the end of the day, you give your work your all, and then you come home and give your leftovers to those that you love the most.
right.
Like, what do you envision in terms of growing this successful retreat in the future?
I mean, I see more than just the weekend. I understand that's not, some people just can't get away like that. So we're looking at some other options, maybe doing a one day option at the Greatness Factory. So we're looking at other things. Do we do a couples conference? Do we, what does that look like? So I want to get a handle on the retreats and make sure that I'm growing it properly in a good way, and that's in a healthy place, before we start exploring other things. But yeah, it's coming. I might do a podcast. I don't know.
Oh, really? Okay, talk to me about that.
Well, it's coming. I feel like it's coming. Probably in a couple of months, it's coming. Yeah.
Well,
So
you've got the greatest factory. You
that's right.
got
That's
podcast rooms.
that's right.
Oh yeah,
So
amazing. And would like the couples retreats and talking about entrepreneurship and couple challenges, would that sort of be the theme of your podcast?
that's what I'm feeling right now. Yes.
Yeah.
Be cool too to interview other women who are married to driven men, whether it be an athlete, a entertainer, like what does this look like behind the scenes for other people? I mean, I know what it looks like for me and what we've had to do, but I just think it'd be an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And letting like really creating a space for other people to share their story of, and share their lessons, right? Like the challenges and the lessons that other listeners can also. I think that's one of the nicest things about podcasts is like it's educational, it's informative, and on top of that, it's fun. And you get to meet a lot of amazing, interesting people. I love how you have this beautiful trajectory of coming into, this world of like personal development and going through your own growth and taking your lessons and writing a book and then teaching on the book and then helping others. I mean, it's beautiful. Like you are, as you continue your own journey, what I love most is, if you're able to grow as a person and impact people along the way. I think there's nothing more beautiful than feeling like what you do matters, and what you're building matters. And on top of that, being able to do all that and not affect the people that you love the most, and being able to like grow even deeper bonds and relationships with those that you love, your family, your husband, like I think that to me is success,
Yeah.
right? Like being able to have a life that you actually love, you know, on the camera, but also off the camera, right? In the boardroom, but then also at home. And that's something that I think we should all kind of strive for, or
Yeah.
find people that can help you get there.
That's
Yeah. And I guess I would love to know, like, how are you going to use the Greatness Factory as a place that, can really create or cultivate this ability for people to really dream, to
yeah.
really look at what's possible for them?
Yeah. I think it's natural when they get in the space. We designed this very strategically. We have a money lab, that where you can just talk like ideas and how to create revenue. And then we have the Dream Foundry where we feel like, that's where dreams are born. Like, let's get it out on paper. Let's figure out what your dreams are and what do you need to do to get there, and then we have the podcast studio and the theater, and it's just a really cool place. Like, even I get excited when I come here and, like, we made it, but it's just really exciting to see everyone in there. The exchanging that's happening is really cool. The energy is really cool when you see people working in there, especially, this place has lived in my mind for 9 years, and like seeing it and being in it is just, it's a really, really cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like you envisioned it. I think if I understand correctly, you're actually a designer as well. Like you did all the designs for the Greatness Factory, and like, and that's definitely one of your gifts, right? And
Well,
that's
I've really learned that my gift of hospitality is not just serving food. It is atmosphere. It's design, which has to do with the atmosphere. It has to do with how you feel in a space that I've created. So all of those things are part of my gift of hospitality.
absolutely, absolutely. I think ultimately it's part of your gift of like you're a very creative person, and it shows up in different ways.
That's right.
So, if people want to register for the retreat or kind of get into your world a little bit, how can they do that? Where do they go?
So I'm on Instagram, Natalie G. Burt. And then our website, coachburt.com/events, has all of the couples retreats there. We just did a free webinar last night about living with a monster. So we typically do those once a month. But those are all listed on the website to sign up for that. And all of our events are there on the website.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, Natalie, it has been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for helping the people that really do need that help. I love how you're helping couples. I think that this is an area where, we need more people helping couples so that families can stay together and thrive together.
Yes, that's right. Thank you
My
for having me.
pleasure, Natalie. Okay, I hope to see you soon. Take care.